Are you aware of the 12 essential items you should prepare before May 1st? Not because supplies will suddenly disappear overnight. Not because some catastrophic event is guaranteed to happen on a specific date, but because of how disruptions actually work. And why the people who get caught out are almost never the ones who had no warning. They are the ones who had warning and waited anyway. Here is how it actually happens. Changes don't arrive all at once. They build slowly. Prices rise on certain goods and you notice it but don't act. Items start becoming harder to find on shelves, but there's always another store, another day. Tower becomes slightly less reliable, but never urgent enough to feel like a real problem. Then something tips the scale. A regional shortage. A piece of news that spreads fast. And everyone reacts at the same time. That is where the real problem begins. Not in the event itself, but in the collective reaction to it. The issue is never total disappearance. It's loss of access at the worst possible moment. People don't end up in trouble because everything vanished. They end up in trouble because they waited too long, and by the time they moved, so did a million other people. The shelves aren't empty because the supply chain collapsed. They're empty because everyone showed up on the same day. Most of the items on this list are not expensive. Some cost almost nothing, but they're only truly appreciated once they're gone. Item number 7 is especially overlooked. People almost never think about it until the moment they realize it's the one thing standing between them and a serious problem. Let's start at the beginning. Number 12. Fuel. Very first thing that makes a society uneasy when disruption arrives isn't food, it's fuel. In a country where daily life is built around driving, when your gas tank hits empty, your entire routine stops. You can't get to work, pick up your kids, reach the pharmacy, or handle any of the basic functions that keep daily life running. What feels like a minor inconvenience becomes a situation that affects every part of your day simultaneously. At around $4 per gallon, filling a tank can cost $60 to $70 or more. But cost isn't the real concern. The concern is what happens to human behavior when people sense instability. And that behavior follows a pattern that is remarkably consistent every time it plays out. Day 1. Stations are a little busier than usual. Day 2. Lines stretch longer and people arrive with extra containers, which sends a visible signal to everyone watching that something is happening. Day 3. Out of gas signs appear at certain stations, and that is the moment real panic spreads. Not because fuel has run out globally, not because the supply chain has collapsed, but because the system gets overwhelmed when too many people try to act at exactly the same time. You don't run out of fuel because there isn't any. You run out because you waited, just like everyone else did. The fuel exists, the problem is access, and access disappears faster than the supply does when demand spikes suddenly across an entire region. At that stage, even filling your tank becomes a stressful, time-consuming ordeal. Long lines, no guarantee the station will still have fuel by the time you reach the pump. Time lost that cannot be recovered. The preparation is simple. Keep your tank at least half full at all times. Don't wait until the last quarter. The moment you think you still have time is often when millions of others are thinking the same thing. When everyone moves at once, the system clogs almost instantly. The real advantage isn't how much fuel you have. It's that you're not part of the chaos when it starts. While others stand in line for hours, you are carrying on with your normal day. So ask yourself honestly, if you couldn't get fuel tomorrow, how long could you realistically keep moving before your routine started to break down? Asterisk number 11. Backup power. Losing electricity doesn't harm you instantly, but it strips away your sense of control faster than almost anything else. Within hours, the lights are out, your internet has dropped, and your phone battery is declining. You are cut off from the flow of information and communication that modern daily life depends on entirely. And outages rarely happen once and resolve cleanly. They stretch. They come back in waves. A short blackout in the evening becomes a full day without power. And then trying to buy any backup equipment becomes nearly impossible because everyone in the same situation is trying to do the same thing at the same time. The goal of having a backup power source is not to run your entire home. It's to keep 3 things functioning: your phone for communication, some form of internet access to stay informed, and basic lighting. Those 3 things determine whether you feel in control of a situation or completely at the mercy of it. Tower banks, portable power stations, and small energy storage devices can all handle these needs. The discipline required is simple: prioritize your phone first, internet second, lighting third. Avoid powering high-drain appliances. They empty your backup far faster than you expect. The most common mistake is buying the device and never keeping it charged. When the moment comes, it provides almost no help. A second common mistake is trying to maintain normal usage during an outage and burning through the reserve in hours. Set clear priorities and protect your backup strictly for essential use. It only takes one night without electricity to understand the real difference. Without preparation, you lose contact, miss critical information, and your routine breaks down. With even modest preparation, you stay connected and maintain the sense of stability that makes everything else manageable. Number 10. Toilet paper. Toilet paper is one of those items you almost never think about ahead of time. It is always on shelves, always easy to grab, always available without any special effort. And that sense of effortless availability is precisely why so many people never prepare for its absence, right up until the moment it disappears and they are reminded, in a very direct way, that they should have. It doesn't take a full-scale crisis to clear the shelves. It takes a growing wave of concern. When people sense disruption approaching, they start buying just a little more than usual. One extra pack instead of one, two instead of one. Individually, each purchase is modest and entirely reasonable. Collectively, across thousands of people making the same decision at the same time, those choices create a demand surge that retail systems simply are not designed to absorb. Shelves that were fully stocked on Monday are empty by Wednesday or Thursday. Not because the products stopped being manufactured, not because the supply chain collapsed, but because the gap between when people started buying and when restocking could happen was too wide to bridge. What's important to understand is that the supply has not disappeared. The product still exists in warehouses, but it cannot reach store shelves fast enough to keep pace with the speed at which people are buying. In that gap, which can last days or even weeks in more significant disruptions, those who didn't prepare are left with no options. Running out of toilet paper is not immediately dangerous, but it is immediately and persistently uncomfortable. Going without for a day is an inconvenience. Several days affects your daily routine, your sense of hygiene, your mood, and the basic feeling that life is functioning normally. The moment you think you should probably pick some up is almost always the exact moment thousands of others are having the same thought. By then, you are walking into the most competitive moment. The solution: buy it before you need it. No hoarding required. Just enough buffers so you don't need to rush out with everyone else when the timing is worst. Number 9. Medicine and first aid. Most health problems during disruptions don't begin as emergencies. They start small: a headache, a mild fever, a minor cut, an allergic reaction. On any ordinary day, none of these feel urgent because the solution is always within easy reach. But when systems are disrupted, those same minor issues become frustrating in ways disproportionate to how small they started. It's not that they become more dangerous immediately, it's that you can't address them when it matters. And the window between minor problem solved in minutes and problem that has dragged on for days is often just a matter of how quickly you responded. Take a fever. Treated promptly, it might mean one uncomfortable evening. Without medication on hand, it extends into a second and third day, affecting the whole household's routine and peace of mind. A small cut cleaned immediately heals without incident. Left unattended with inadequate supplies, it can become infected and require ongoing attention. The difference between problems staying minor and problems growing is almost entirely determined by how quickly you can respond. And that speed depends entirely on whether you already have what you need. The preparation is not extensive. Pain relievers, fever reducers, allergy medication, bandages in multiple sizes, antiseptic solution, and anything specific to your household's known health needs. Check expiration dates regularly. Store everything in a single known location that every adult in the household is aware of. No scrambling at midnight through drawers. No discovering the pain reliever expired 18 months ago. When a problem arises, you respond in minutes. And in many situations, those first few minutes are what keep something minor from becoming something much harder to manage. Number 8. Cooking. Stove. Having food stored provides a false sense of security if you haven't thought about the one step that turns stored food into something you can eat. Cooking. That step disappears entirely and the power goes out. Most modern cooking infrastructure runs on electricity. Stove, microwave, electric kettle, and all of it stops simultaneously. In that moment, the food you've stored can go from being a genuine asset to something you can look at but not This matters more than it initially seems because many foods that are practical to store specifically because of their shelf life also require heat to be safe and edible. Dried grains need cooking. Canned goods are far more palatable heated. Water needs boiling if safety is uncertain. The foods easiest to stockpile for exactly the situations where you need them are often the same foods most dependent on having a way to prepare them. Without heat, your food supply has gaps you didn't plan for. The solution is not complicated. A portable gas stove combined with a supply of backup fuel canisters is genuinely sufficient for most households. You need to boil water, heat food, and prepare simple meals. A basic portable stove covers all of that. These are widely available at normal prices right now, but they become one of the first items to disappear from shelves when widespread outages occur. Because people only think of them at exactly the moment everyone else does. It only takes one experience of standing in front of food you cannot cook to fully understand what this item prevents. Number 7. Water filtration. This is the item most people overlook. And the reason they overlook it is exactly why it becomes such a serious problem. Water seems like the one thing that will always be there. You turn on the tap and it runs, clear, odorless, cold. The idea that it might not be safe to drink feels abstract and unlikely, right up until it doesn't. The reality is that water systems are more vulnerable than most people assume. Pipes age and degrade. Water sources can be affected by contamination, flooding, or treatment disruptions. Equipment failures happen with regularity across the country, and when they do, they often unfold without immediate visible warning. What makes this particularly difficult to manage in real time is that water can look and smell completely normal and still be unsafe. Many contaminants, certain bacteria, viruses, heavy metals, chemical compounds, are colorless, odorless, and tasteless. You cannot assess safety by looking at a glass of water. This creates a situation where you might be holding water from your own tap, genuinely uncertain whether drinking it is safe. That uncertainty is deeply uncomfortable. It forces decisions without the information needed to make them confidently. What makes this particularly difficult to manage in real time is that water can look and smell completely normal and still be unsafe. Many contaminants, certain bacteria, viruses, heavy metals, chemical compounds, are colorless, odorless, and tasteless. You cannot assess safety by looking at a glass of water. You cannot tell by smelling it. This creates a situation where you might be holding water from your own tap, under your own roof, genuinely uncertain whether drinking it is safe. And usually it is only when that doubt sets in that you start thinking about filtration, which means by that point, many others have already thought of it ahead of you. That uncertainty forces decisions without the information needed to make them confidently. Do you drink it and hope? Or do you not drink it and figure out another solution? When that moment arrives, the people with a water filter already available have something others don't, a clear action to take. Instead of guessing or waiting for an official statement that may not arrive quickly, they run the water through the filter and proceed with reasonable confidence. They have taken control of the situation rather than waiting for the situation to resolve itself. Water filtration does not need to be complicated or expensive to be effective. A quality countertop or gravity-fed filter handles the most common contaminants that represent realistic risks during infrastructure disruptions. The goal is not laboratory-grade purified water for every use. The goal is a reliable step you can take before drinking or cooking whenever there is any doubt. The rule is straightforward. If there is any doubt, filter before you use it. You cannot trust appearance. You cannot rely on smell. A filter removes the uncertainty entirely. And the difference between facing a water safety concern with a filter in your home and facing it without one is the difference between having a solution and having a problem with no immediate answer. Number 6. Lighter or matches. You rarely think about not being able to create fire until the moment you actually cannot. It seems too basic, too universally available to plan for, and that is precisely why it falls off the preparedness list. It's the kind of item you assume you'll always have because you've always had it somewhere in your home. But consider the specific scenario. You have a portable gas stove, fuel canisters, food ready to prepare, and then you reach for a lighter or matches and discover there isn't one within reach, or the one you find is empty, damp, or broken. In that moment, everything you prepared becomes temporarily useless. Not because of a serious shortage, because of one small, inexpensive item you assumed you had. The preparation is minimal and the cost is almost nothing. Keep at least 2 or 3 lighters or matchbooks in different locations, one near your kitchen, one in an emergency bag, one stored separately so a single incident doesn't eliminate all your options at once. Waterproof matches are particularly durable for storage purposes. Check them periodically to confirm they work. Lighters can lose fuel through slow evaporation in warm storage, and matches can absorb moisture in humid conditions. Neither is a serious problem caught during a routine check. Both become genuinely frustrating when discovered at the moment you need fire and can't make it. The broader principle this item represents is worth understanding. It is rarely something large and complex that disrupts carefully laid plans. It is almost always a small overlooked detail that was assumed rather than confirmed. Keep backups. The cost is negligible. The redundancy eliminates a risk that would be remarkably frustrating to face. Being fully prepared in every meaningful way except for the one small thing that makes the rest of it work. Number 5. Can opener. This is the most quietly ironic mistake in preparedness, and it happens with surprising frequency to people who thought they had prepared carefully. The scenario is simple. You have stocked canned food, reasonable quantities, good variety, long shelf life. You feel ready, and then the moment comes to use it. You reach for a can opener, and you don't have one, or the one you thought you had doesn't work, or you can't find it. The food that was supposed to sustain you sits on the counter, completely inaccessible. A can opener functions as the final link in the preparation chain. You've identified the right food, acquired it, organized it, and developed the cooking capability to heat it. Then the last step, the simplest step, is the one that's missing. Everything upstream becomes nearly useless because the final connection isn't there. The food exists. You just can't get to it. And the frustration of standing in front of food you cannot access is a specific kind of problem that is completely avoidable with a $2 item. The solution is almost embarrassingly straightforward. Own at least one manual can opener. Know exactly where it is, and confirm it actually works. Not electric, a manual one that requires nothing except your hands. Manual can openers work when the power is out, which is precisely when you are most likely to need them. Keep a second one in a different location because small items get lost or damaged without drawing much attention. A backup store in an emergency kit or a separate storage area costs almost nothing and eliminates the specific frustration this item is designed to prevent. This item represents a broader principle worth applying to everything else on this list. Having supplies is not the same as having a complete and functional chain. The chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and the weakest link is almost never something expensive or complex. It is almost always something small and cheap that nobody thought to confirm was actually present and functional. Check it. Know where it is. That's the entire preparation. Number 4. Power banks. Power banks are reliably among the first items to sell out and spike in price when outages or disruptions hit. And the reason is easy to understand when you think about what your phone actually represents in modern daily life. It is not just a communication device. It is your navigation when you need directions, your payment method at stores and services, your primary source of information about what is happening and how long it will last, and your connection to everyone who needs to reach you or whom you need to reach. When the phone dies, all of that disappears simultaneously. Picture the progression. The power goes out but your phone is working. You check updates, send messages, make calls. For the first hour, everything feels manageable. Then the battery starts dropping. 40%, you're more selective. 20%, you're conserving aggressively. 10%, you're watching the number with real anxiety. Screen goes black. At that moment you are not simply without a phone. You are without navigation, without payment capability, without information, without contact. You've gone from managing the situation to being completely passive within it. A mid-range power bank with capacity to recharge your phone 2 or 3 times costs under $30 and fits in a jacket pocket. That covers the critical initial period of almost any disruption. Keep it charged at all times. Treat it the same way you treat your phone. Charge it when it gets low. Know where it is. Carry it when you go out. When using it during a disruption, prioritize communication and information. The most common failure: people buy a power bank, use it occasionally, forget to recharge it, and find it at 30% when they actually need it at full. Number 3. Salt and basic seasoning. This item generates the most skepticism on this list. You might be thinking that if things got serious enough, You'd manage fine eating and seasoned food. And technically you would be right. You wouldn't be in danger. You wouldn't go hungry. But what actually happens over several days without any seasoning is more significant than most people expect, and understanding it changes how you think about this item. Day 1. Food is plain but manageable. Day 2. Meals start feeling obviously flat. You notice you're not enjoying eating the way you normally would. By day 3, something has shifted. Meals are no longer something you look forward to. They're something you get through. You're eating to fuel yourself, not because the act of eating brings any of the routine normalcy it usually does. That shift sounds minor until you experience it. Eating is not just caloric intake. It is one of the most consistent daily anchors of psychological normalcy. When that anchor becomes unpleasant rather than satisfying, it adds weight to every other difficulty you're managing. Salt plays additional roles beyond flavor. Electrolyte balance in the body, and in some cases basic food preservation for extending the usable life of perishables. Both matter more when you're under stress and eating differently than usual. Beyond salt, basic seasonings cost almost nothing, take up almost no space, and last months 2 years in storage. Ironically, this is exactly why they rarely appear on preparedness lists. No urgency, no perceived risk. And that's exactly why they're consistently among the first things to disappear when people suddenly remember they need them. The preparation is trivial. A small additional supply of what you already cook with. The return is the ability to keep eating properly, in the full sense, throughout whatever disruption you're managing. Number 2. Replaceable battery swap. Through your home and make a mental list of every device that runs on replaceable batteries. Flashlights, portable radios, wall clocks, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, certain medical devices, emergency weather radios, battery-powered lanterns. The list is longer than most people expect when they stop and actually count. Now consider what happens to all of those devices simultaneously when the batteries that power them are dead or unavailable. The flashlight you were counting on in a blackout doesn't work. The radio that was supposed to keep you informed is silent. The medical device someone in your household depends on is non-functional. A significant portion of your backup capability disappears, not because of any complex failure, but because of an item that costs less than $10. The reason batteries are so often missing when needed is the same reason as so many other items on this list. They're cheap, widely available, and easy to get under normal conditions, which means there's never a compelling reason to stockpile them in advance. During any significant disruption, demand surges almost immediately from multiple directions at once. Everyone with a flashlight or radio or dependent device needs batteries simultaneously. The supply that seemed abundant on Monday is exhausted by Tuesday. By the time you think to get some, others may have already taken them. The preparation requires a specific kind of attention most people don't naturally apply to something this mundane. Audit your devices. Know which types each item in your household requires. Stock a meaningful supply of each type, stored away from the devices themselves to prevent corrosion. And critically, check them periodically. Batteries expire. They can leak in warm storage conditions without anyone noticing. Discovering your emergency battery supply is corroded or dead in the middle of a blackout is completely avoidable with a brief check every few months. Owning batteries and having working batteries are two different things. Number 1. Headlamp. Most people's instinct when thinking about managing a power outage is candles. And candles are better than nothing. But they are a meaningfully worse solution than most people assume, for reasons that become obvious the moment you are actually trying to function in low light rather than simply sit in it. A candle provides ambient illumination in the area around it. It doesn't point where you're looking, doesn't move with you, occupies a surface, requires careful carrying that eliminates one hand, and represents a genuine fire risk when you're moving around less carefully than usual and when emergency services may be less immediately accessible than normal. A flashlight is a meaningful improvement, but it occupies your hand. In any situation where you need light to actually work, preparing food, addressing a maintenance issue, providing first aid, searching for something important, having one hand permanently occupied by the light source slows you down and increases the likelihood of mistakes. You are effectively working one-handed in the dark. A headlamp eliminates this entirely. The light is mounted at eye level, pointing exactly where you're looking. Both hands stay completely free. You can cook with full control of your tools. You can address a household issue with full dexterity. You can move through your home safely without holding anything. The light follows your attention automatically because it's aligned with your line of sight. This distinction between having light and having useful light is the difference between feeling like you're managing the situation and feeling like you're fighting against it. Someone navigating a dark home with a headlamp is in control of their environment. Someone doing the same while holding a flashlight or carrying a candle is working around a constant obstacle. The practical gap between those two experiences is larger than it sounds on paper, and it shows up most clearly at exactly the moments when everything else is already difficult. A reliable headlamp costs $15 to $30. Keep it somewhere accessible rather than buried in storage. Check the batteries every few months and replace them proactively. Keep spare batteries nearby so you're not searching for them in the dark when you need them. That is the entire preparation. The goal is simple: keep functioning normally even when there's no electricity. When you can do that, you maintain control of your situation. While others struggle with limited visibility, you continue working at normal speed and capability, which also reduces the mistakes and accidents that happen most easily in exactly the conditions where they are hardest to recover from. Conclusion: 12 items. Some cost almost nothing. Most are available at any grocery or hardware store on any normal day. None require specialized knowledge or significant expense. And yet, every single one represents a category of preparation that most people either skip entirely or defer until the moment it's too late to be useful. Here is the most important thing to understand about how disruptions actually unfold. Life rarely breaks down because of one large catastrophic event that arrives with clear warning and gives everyone time to act. It breaks down through a series of small, compounding failures, each of which seemed manageable or unlikely on its own. A gas tank that was almost empty, a phone that hit zero at the wrong moment, water from a tap that suddenly didn't feel safe to drink, a can that couldn't be opened, a stove with no way to light it, a flashlight with no batteries. None of these are dramatic. None make headlines, but experienced together, or even just 2 or 3 at once, they produce a situation where you've lost control of your own basic daily functioning, not because of something you couldn't have anticipated, but because of things you assumed would always be available when you needed them. That assumption, that the things you need will be there when you need them, is what creates vulnerability. And it's an assumption that is entirely and easily corrected, for almost no cost, with a small amount of consistent attention. The calm person in a disruption is not someone without problems. It is someone who prepared before those problems arrived, who kept the tank above half, who kept the power bank charged, who had the filter on the shelf, the matches in the drawer, the can opener confirmed and accessible. These are not heroic acts of preparedness. They are small, consistent habits that cost almost nothing and provide the one thing that is hardest to manufacture: a crisis. The ability to keep functioning while everything around you is uncertain. You don't need everything at once. You don't need to spend a significant amount of money or dedicate a full weekend to this. Start with the 1 or 2 items from this list where your current situation is most exposed. Get those handled. Then move to the next. Build gradually and consistently until the gaps are closed, because the gap between prepared and unprepared is not as large as it looks from the outside. It is usually just a handful of small, inexpensive items that someone got around to before the moment they were needed. And that small, entirely bridgeable gap, which requires almost nothing to close, is what determines whether a disruption is something you manage calmly or something that manages you.